Welcome back for part 2 of the Sage List countdown of top 10 Wickebine Kigyouden bosses. Now, on to number 5, Briony. Okay, so some of you are going to ask me, Sage, why did you pick a taciturn, sand-burrowing slug as number 5? How is this guy better than the Pharaoh? To which I respond, that is an excellent question, theoretical viewer. Briony gets number 5 on this list because he does something that stands out. And not many bosses do this, or at least not well. He makes you want to kill him. When you think about it, this is a feature reserved for some of the greatest video game bosses of all time. Would taking down Sehpiroth or Kefka be half as satisfying without all of the prior encounters? Would Protoman mean half as much if he were just another one-off robot master? Not at all. Would come to think of it, I'll come back to him a little bit later. With most of the bosses in this game, you end up making your own motivation to get through the level, just to see the boss. Then, as soon as you meet them, you end up stabbing them in the face. And then off you go, to go repeat the cycle again. But this idiot worm, he gets away. And this would be disarming enough on its own, but then he drags you into his lair and makes you crawl through the ant tunnel, which is a pretty long and challenging level. And this spin-dashing blob monster is harassing you the whole time. By the time you get your real one-on-one showdown, you can't wait to put this son of a bitch in the ground. Number 4, the Storm Knight. Rudolph, the red-nosed bitch deer himself. This guy was a great early challenge, and man did he bring the pain. First off, he has a great creative design, although that's more on the Ragnarok Online team than the creator of this game. Rudolph's fight is absolutely crazy with special attacks and the Blizzard super attack that just wrecked my world time and time again. And sure, there's gear that makes this fight easier, but most of it can be missed if you don't know where to look, and some of your gear just feels worthless against him if you haven't been changing it out, which is still a real possibility this early in the game. Even later on in the boss rush, he is still one of the most devastating enemies that shows up to that whole fight. Pretty impressive considering most of the bosses come from later on in the game, and really the nearest challenge is from the combined power of Dracula and the Pharaoh. However, two things really win him my number 4 slot. First, I'll have to admit a slight bias. It's hard not to have some affection for this character after helping him earn the nickname Rudolph through my trash talk my first run of this game. Second is the weapon you can get his challenge statue to drop, Icy Death. This sword does massive damage and can utterly ruin the fight with a decent number of the other bosses. It does this through the use of a cold stat and the ability to freeze them in place. Icing Death is just one more way that Rudolph asserts his dominance over the lower ranks. Number 3, Baphomet. This is the big bad boss you have slain all of the other bosses to get to. This guy chases you across the level a lot like Briony does, and he hurls most of the bosses you fought up to this point at you all at once. But don't think he is content to just send minions to do his dirty work. He is one seriously tough boss. However, his fight is also part of the reason he's not on the top of the list. Unlike every other boss, you do not take him on alone. You have an ally holding your hand, casting holy buffs and heals, which you would think makes this battle feel more epic, but somewhere the feeling that you earn this victory is diminished. Now, it just feels like Mommy White Mage had to babysit you through this battle, and you couldn't even win this battle easily with that going for you. This is like if when you were playing a Pokemon game, you beat the Elite Four, and then when you went to fight the champion, Nurse Joy shows up, starts healing you every other turn, but the champion is hitting you for just less than half of your health. That scenario might not hurt the fight as much for some people, but to me, in the end, this victory was hollow. Number 2, Victoria. That's right, she stole the glory of the battle with the final boss, but she's not done screwing you over yet. After you kill Baphomet, the world is still empty, because it turns out that the holy powers of this world were only more benign than the forces of evil because they had someone else to focus on, the bosses you've been slaying the entire time. With you having done her dirty work, Victoria shows her true colors and goes all Diet Dr. Sans on us, and I mean that literally. In the first 8 notes of the theme in the background, you know exactly where this battle is going. So, while this fight is really just a much easier version of the Sans fight from Undertale, especially since by this point in the game I got into the habit of using the evade build. And while this might sound like a negative, I actually really enjoyed this cleverly crafted homage to Undertale. In the end, this was a really fun battle that finally let us bring that balance to the world that we sought from the very beginning. However, without the build-up and difficulty of the original, I mostly just wanted to go for the real thing and take on Sans for real. Maybe I'll make that a later video down the road. The runner-ups. Before I move on to number 1, I wanted to bring some attention to the battles that didn't quite make the cut. Griffin. Not much to say about this great chicken in the sky, except that he's more of a speed bump than a boss. In fact, it's not long before you find yourself fighting 2 of them at once. Apocalypse. Epic name for a pretty run-of-the-mill boss. This fight is mostly just Chill Penguin from Megaman X, but less of the bullshit that made him a challenge. Admittedly, he is a good learning experience for the first boss of the game, but he never does much to stand out. There are a few things that I'd do to beef up this boss. First, I'd rename him Golem, Guardian, something a bit more appropriate. Next, I'd add another secret fight with this guy protecting some powerful hidden treasure. However, to get to it, you have to take 2 of the beefed up versions of this guy from the challenge statues, the same way as they did with the Griffin. Edgar. Poor Edgar. He just barely did not make the cut, but showing up after several items that outright trivializing the drop kind of makes it tough for this guy to stand out. Not having any loot that really pays off does not help him in this case either. Rogue. While this guy was fun to fight, he's just ruined by the promising comeback that he never intended to fulfill. Pfft, tease. Besides, it's hard to justify a spot on the list when everything this guy is going for him, someone else on this list does better, such as the Crusader, and the Homunculi, and... Number 1. The Doppelganger. Specifically, I'm talking about the Omega Doppelganger, which takes some explaining. On the way to fight Baphomet, he decides that the best way to fight you off is to send you at a being with many of the same powers and advantages you have. However, if along the way to Baphomet you've been picking fights with his well-trained cleaning staff, you end up picking up a crystal mirror. Shine that sucker on your doppelganger and prepare for all hell to break loose. Now, I love fights where the villain has to play by the same rules as the hero. Some great examples of this are Jack vs. Mad Jack in the Samurai Jack series, or specifically in video games, fighting your shadow in Zelda 2. These kind of fights are always a delight to watch. Omega here just takes it up a notch. Fast and powerful, this hidden fight is a great reward for the effort it cost to meet it. Then, finally, when you beat what might be the strongest boss of the game, he drops the Sehpiroth, is that how you pronounce it? Sehpiroth? Either way, it's a boot that combines all of the most useful boots in the game into one, which comes in really handy for the rest of the fights in the game. After getting to fight this boss, and really all of the bosses in this game, I really am excited to see what Shadow Who Walks works on next, whether it's another fan project or it's a game of his own. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed my first top 10. If you want to see me do more like this, please let me know in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel for more great games like this. I'm hoping to do more review content in the future, and more top 10s like this. I probably will be scaling back on gameplay, mostly reserving gameplay content for live streams and more interactive content. This has been the Sage of Steel, and I hope you all have a great day.